Wow. Guess he did it moving around in there.
That was so heavy.
Sorry?
That was so heavy.
It was, yes.
Thank you guys all for staying.
Thank you.
Let's go.
I know.
The whole body.
You don't need that. They can hear. You go over here, right?
Yeah.
You can't see me, but you can hear me.
It's like radio.
Mahogany, persimmon.
Thank you.
Well, I think, by the way, hi, I'm Perry from the Boston Science Fiction Film Festival here, and I'm a radio guy, so if you can't see me, that's fine. I'm a face for radio anyway. I think one of the most interesting questions that apply to a lot of filmmakers is, at what point did you decide, I have to make this film?
So
There's reason A, B, C, and D.
I'm the actor in it. So the reason I decided to do the film is because somebody hired me to be in it. So the director, writer is not here. Patrick is he's not here. So I can't answer those questions. I think that part of what happened is I think he's dealt with some of the issues in his own life. So I think that was the impetus for it. Although clearly this is a metaphor rather than really what happened in his own life. So I can't answer that question about why. Hi, everybody. So yeah, so I can't answer that question. If you have questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them. I'm the guy with the beard.
It looks like the form was similar, now I can see the
Yes,
face
but
is similar.
I tried to dress in a way that you recognize me.
Now that the lights are on it.
What was it like filming and just like with all the, because I saw all the like COVID-19 on it, or like a lot
Yeah, that we were able to film it all was okay, but I had already done some other stuff during COVID. So I was in the middle of shooting something when COVID hit. Didn't do anything for about a year, and then I was already back on the set. So the protocols for us were minimal compared to what I'd experienced months before. So, and it still sort of cycles through. So even when you're doing stuff now, although we were just on strike, but some people are still wearing masks. So it was, and also it was a pretty small cast as well. So it wasn't, that was hardly an issue. Yes.
So I'm curious, I was a little bit confused about your relationship with your daughter. That she was calling, you weren't responding to her calls, and you saw her then. Was she actually alive?
Yeah, so my wife had taken her own life, and so the journey of the character anyway is him having sort of he sort of bifurcated his whole approach to this, right? So one is, it's all about the research, but clearly his agenda is to figure out how to deal with the grief of his wife who took her own life and the guilt he has around that, which is actually very common with people who take their own life. People around them feel responsible. And so that's really what he's trying to find a way in. And he uses Adam because he's too scared to actually talk to the young wife.
Can I ask another question? Because I consider that as a reality, but I guess I was confused by the fact that your character didn't respond to your daughter's voicemails and texts.
I think that's sort of separate and apart from what's going on for him in terms of the work. But I don't think it's unusual for a parent. In work, I've done work with suicide, interestingly enough, and so two things are happening when somebody takes their own life, right? So it's the parent's job is to take care of the kids, but if like you're both grieving at the same time. And he clearly, because he also lost his father to suicide, doesn't have any of the mechanisms or the coping skills to deal with his own grief, much less than be there for his daughter. And so rather than, it's just too painful for him. And so he just keeps pushing her away. And he pushes everybody away.
I see.
So I think that's, you know, then that she just shows up. You know, because she's healthier than he is.
Right.
Just basically healthier than he is.
So, he pushes all the physical human beings away, but he finds sort of, I guess, friendship or forms a relationship with Adam. So what was your thought process?
It was the only place he could get answers because in his head it was a simulation, right? So there was safety in that. There's nobody we knew, right? So there's the anonymity of trying to get answers from somebody. Nobody knows what happens when you die. And here's a window, right? Here's a window into something that might give him a clue. And that's when he says to, you know, his boss, he's like, what if in fact it's not just a simulation? What if it's actually there? So he's getting insight into the afterlife in as safe a way as one can. And so he's drawn to that. And also it's not degrading, right? So everybody else is degrading. This one guy, the person who takes her own life doesn't degrade. And so since his wife also took her own life, he sees the possibility of possibility. And so there's safety there. And he's also in his basement. Nobody else is around. He's hiding it, right? It's like a drug. And he keeps going back because it's tapping something in him where he's trying to find some answer and he's getting closer to it. That's what I was feeling.
I was a little confused because was Sylvie the name of the actor whose house he was in?
Yeah, so that's
She was
the
dead.
she kills herself after I go the second time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Call it's not one of his finer moments. and to be honest, there's also, I mean, you know, you see him, you know, kill somebody, but that's also in his mind. It's also very possible that Sylvie doesn't actually die.
Oh.
That's just in his mind.
Okay.
Right.
You've done a lot of roles. I've seen you in a lot of other things. Did this require any particular special preparation for this role because of the subject matter for you?
I don't know that I approached it any differently than I do anything else. I've never had a lead and held a movie all to myself. It's very difficult for me to watch. To sit and watch, it was very bizarre. It was not comfortable. I mean, when I watch myself in something else, you know, I'm a smaller part in a bigger thing. So from that standpoint, but in terms of my approach, you don't think about the meta. You're not thinking about what the director has in mind. Every moment, you're just doing the moment, right? And so for me, that was the only way I could figure out how to. It was exhausting. It was 6 days a week. It was 13-hour days in some cases. But you know, you're just doing those moments and getting them down and figuring it out, and then you're done, kind of. You know.
Wonderfully done.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. It was, and it's really interesting seeing, I think, like, and I think knowing you a little bit outside your professional work, you're a very empathetic person, and I think also to be an actor, obviously that involves a lot of empathy to be able to imagine other people's experiences. In this case, you're playing a character who is extremely not, well, he's like alienated from himself. And there's, and I think part of it is also that he's a scientist, so he's a little bit of an engineer. He's like trying to use a very rational approach to address an extremely emotional and vulnerable part of himself. And I think part of the movie is about like, so I guess I'm curious like how you occupy a character who is very different from who you are. Like to be able to be an actor, you have to be able to empathize with people, but you're playing a character who's essentially an engineer trying to reach this very vulnerable part of themselves.
That's a very big question. I think when, the goal of an actor is to find the truth of the character, right? And that comes out in the language and the dialogue, which is just an expression of thought. And so it's a big what-if game. So I think everybody's got the same capacity for feeling as anybody else. He just has these defense mechanisms. So it's rather than hiding empathy, it's really about working on finding those walls, right? And he has very specific walls that he's built for himself. And you're catching him midstream, right? You're not catching him right when his wife has passed away. She's passed away almost a year ago. And he has built a series of walls within walls, to protect himself, in order that he can, in a safe way, try to find the truth, because of this, it's just eating him up inside. And I think that that investigating that, it's really a moment-to-moment investigation of it, right? So I'm not thinking about it the whole time. I'm just sort of trying to deal with this moment. What am I not revealing? What am I dealing with? And that's the difference between film and stage a little bit. But the process of it is just taking the time to inhabit it, and playing the big what-if game. What if in fact I didn't have the skills that I have to cope, if I weren't empathetic, if I were scared, if I had lost someone to suicide. And again, the work I've done around suicide since 2013, I've interviewed 200 people around the issue of suicide. The film I did, Talking Out Loud, was about youth and suicide loss, the documentary I did. And so I've heard young people who've lost loved ones to suicide. And so the walls that people build and the lack of communication that they have around it, because the stigma, so I have enough of that nascent knowledge also to know what the behavior is. And so when you do the behavior, it then starts to inform your emotional state, right? So it's not always from the inside out. Sometimes if you just do the behaviors, it starts to impact you in the other direction. But I don't know. I wasn't thinking, what's it gonna look like? So I have no idea. And then when I watch, I'm like, it was very bizarre. I'm glad I sat alone.